Happy Friday to you here. First pitch on WagerTalk TV, and we got a hefty slate of games to break down for you here today, and all of them are evening games. So if you're watching us on the rewatch, you can run with us. While you're hanging out, hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Joining me today, the terrific Friday crew that you come to know and love, Bryan, Leonard, the dog whisperer, and 2 R's, 1 L, Steve Merril in the saddle with you guys here today. Folks are already lining up, asking about games they want to hear, and we'll be doing that, but we'll surely be talking about Minnesota, Seattle, Colorado, and Chicago. We'll talk Rangers, Orioles with my man Steve Merril, and we'll touch upon Padres, Red Sox as well, along with the questions that you're going to be dropping in there. G Hurt right out of the gate saying, Dan, we need a breakdown on Minnesota and Seattle. Well, Bryan Leonard always delivers. That was the game he already wanted to talk about right here at the top. And Bry, for this one, 3 straight series losses for Seattle coming into this one. They do get to come into the start of this weekend set with a little bit of extra rest, but it's not like the Twins aren't excited to get back on the diamond after that 13-6 win that they rolled the D-backs yesterday. So I'm wondering for you, Bry, how are you looking to bet this one? Are we going side? Are we going to total? Because I look at the price in this one, and it's as far as which side I want to back in this one's a bit of a head scratcher. So what's the feel for you?
I'm going to go with the side here. And I do like both of these pitchers, but I have some concerns about Bailey Ober. He's, for the most part, he's been very good this year. He's had 2 blow-up starts. Unfortunately, the first one was the first game of the season. But he's got decent numbers, 4.5 ERA, whip of 111. 111 is pretty good. But the problem with Ober is he throws his four-seamer 40% of the time, 39%. That's his major pitch he throws. And his fastball this year just hasn't been good. If you take a look at his StatCast data, his fastball run value is in the 7th percentile. His fastball velocity in the 19th percentile. Another thing that concerns us is his ground ball percentage of only in the 7th percentile. So he gives up fly balls, gives up line drives. That is a concern. His barrel percentage is 19%. We would like it something a lot better than that. So he's in the 19th percentile in barrel percentage, allowing this year 9.8% barrels. League average is 7. So he's a guy that doesn't hit often, but when he does get hit, he gets hit hard. And that is our concern here going into this game in Seattle. Minnesota's playing really great ball, good offense going on right now, but I do have some concerns about Bailey Ober. As opposed to Logan Gilbert, he's been terrific. Comes in with a 2.71 ERA, 0.89 whip. He's been awesome all year long. Take a look at his pitching run value, 98th percentile, breaking run value, 100th percentile. Nobody's got better breaking pitches than Logan Gilbert this year. His extension is also in the 100th percentile, so he's tall. He's 6'6", and he's got a long extension, which means the ball gets to the plate much faster than other players, and it's really worked out well for him here. I like Logan Gilbert going today against Minnesota. It's more of a situation where I just think we got the pitching edge. I think Minnesota's got the hitting edge a little bit, especially lately. But they got the good news. Correa got hit by a pitch yesterday, and he walked off the field as if it was broken. It looked terrible, but he came out clean, no problem, no broken bones, and he's going to be in the lineup today. That really helps in that regard. So give me Gilbert over Ober in this one, and the line's pretty fair here. What I'm looking at, we're seeing Minnesota in anywhere from 122 to 125 range. That works out well for me. I like Seattle in this one.
Yeah, and shout out to the chat. Bruce Cotney looking for Seattle to maybe get some nighttime runs. He says Seattle at nighttime, 3 or 4 runs they should get. It's formulaic, gentlemen. For our man Bruce, he says he's going with the first 5 over the 3.5. Our man Bryan Leonard looking at the full game money line for those M's, fresh off of that day of rest. Steve, for you, this Rangers and Orioles game. Hey, Max Scherzer on the mound. We're getting plus money on Max, right? That's the way we have to go in this one, Steve, right? Well, the Rangers need something, especially after that series opener, and really after how the season has kind of started for the reigning champs here. I mean, is there any reason, Steve, to feel It might not be an 11-2 number, but is there any reason to feel here in game 2 it's going to look much different than what the Orioles did here in game 1 against this Rangers team that just has not found its footing consistently whatsoever this season? What are you thinking in this game?
Yeah, they're now 37-44. They've now lost 4 straight. They've lost 9 of the last 13. This team is not right in the corner after winning the World Series. And the bullpen number really jumps out to me. We'll talk about Scherzer in a moment, but this Texas bullpen on the road now, 142 innings pitched, 6.4 ERA, a 1.67 whip. That's as bad as anybody in baseball. And it's part of the reason that they're 17-25 away from home. They've been outscored by a full run per game away from home this year. They're being outbatted by 20 points batting average wise. So, yeah, why are we going to fade them? I mean, why are we going to play them against the Orioles, who are maybe one of the best teams in baseball, or all one of the best teams, maybe the best team in baseball? Scherzer, though, is interesting to talk about because he pitched well in his debut last week. 5 innings, gave up only 1 hit, 4 strikeouts, no walks. So I do think he still has his former stuff. Wasn't as good, though, in the minors, though. So I'm still kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. He made 3 starts at AAA before getting called up. He only pitched 11 innings, and in those 11 innings, he gave up 6 runs, 10 hits. So 3 home runs is what got him in the minors. We'll see. His whip was actually pretty good, though, 1.2. So I think Scherzer still has his stuff. Problem is he's going to be very limited. He's not going to go more than probably 5 innings, and that's if the Orioles don't get to him sooner, which means the Orioles are going to have a huge edge the second half against that bad Ranger bullpen I referenced. So if you are going to take a shot with the Rangers, I think you do it first half. You check the WagerTalk live odds screen, you'll see they're plus 110 for the game. First half, they're actually minus 105. So the odds makers are on to the fact the bullpen is weak. So it's either Texas first half, Baltimore full game. I'll be taking a wait-and-see approach. Just too much uncertainty with Scherzer right now. But once again, if you do like the Rangers, I'd play them first 5. If you like the Orioles, I'd play full game.
Okay. Steve Merril, 2Rs, 1L, WT.buzz/SM.
Freeze, there's a critter on Bryan. No, we got to stop the show. There's a critter on Bryan right now. I want to make sure he's aware.
Oh, they get to see the
Don't
cat.
move, Bryan. Don't
this.
Move. Just don't move.
Watch out.
All right,
this is
all right.
bad.
Sorry about that, Dan. I didn't mean to scare the viewers.
I'll tell you what, Steve. No, I like it.
I fear for
like
Bryan.
It. I had to.
Yeah.
I never clicked over so fast to see what the hell was going on. But the funny thing is the chat is probably loving what's happening here, Steve, because they love hearing the cat. Eric D over in the YouTube Shorts feed said, "Listen for the cat. That's the plays that we want to be rocking with." Now we have seen the cat. Steve, I think first 5 Texas Rangers just became an autoplay because it was just a lean, but we saw the cat at the end of the breakdown. You know the rules here, Steve. We just.
Yeah, it's a dog, and the cat came in earlier than normal, which would be a first 5 reference. So I think you're onto something, Dan Alexander.
True.
It may be a special play because normally you just hears the voice, and now you get to see him. So maybe it's a 5% play.
Yeah, he only makes appearances.
If you were
on
ever wondering.
plays.
That's what I mean. If you ever thought we were just dropping in sound drops, no, all about the authenticity here behind the scenes and in front of the camera, gentlemen.
Bryan wore that shirt on purpose, by the way, because it was Black Friday, as you could see from me and Dan, but that cat blended in really well with that shirt, Bryan. So I see what you're doing here. That's a very smart move on your part. That cat might have been there all day, and I didn't notice till now.
Yeah, Jay Pacino saying a lot of coin flips today, but at least the cat's letting us know what is a lock. LMAO, indeed, my man Jay. Guys, we had a question here earlier, and while you're hanging out with us, make sure that you're subscribed and you've hit that bell if you haven't. That bell, all it's going to do, it's going to notify you when we go live. So when we do these live shows, you're not going to miss it, especially if we're switching up some times that we might be getting towards you a little earlier in the day. More reasons than ever to subscribe here at WagerTalk TV. But when we were hopping on, we had our man Richard Lockhart chiming in. He was saying, "Hello, fellas. I like the San Diego money line." We will be talking that game a little bit later here. What do y'all think? Underdog Friday. Well, we might just be a day late because it was more like Underdog Thursday yesterday, guys. I mean, out of the 9 games, 5 of the underdogs cashed outright. We had the Chicago White Sox plus 230, even higher in some spots, Miami Marlins plus 245. So the underdog day was yesterday. But Steve, typically when we're talking here, It's not like there's some huge numbers. A lot of the time on Fridays, we're talking about road favorite Fridays, right?
Right. Yeah, no, you read my mind. I was going to jump in. I knew, yeah, it was because it's the start of a new series, and my belief is that when it's a new series, you don't overlook a team. When you're the superior team, you want to get started off right. Whereas Thursday is often a getaway day. And just like we talk about with Sundays, I feel like Sunday afternoon is the most random part of the week for baseball games. So, yeah, it would make sense that yesterday was a dog day, but I would not use that premise tonight. If anything, I think tonight's more likely to be favorite night. With that said, though, as you just said, Dan, over half these games are like minus 125 or less. So, it's really hard to say those are upsets or dogs when they're plus 105, plus 110.
Agreed.
But, yeah, Ralph Michaels had that chart earlier this year. In general, Friday, favorites do better on Friday, especially road favorites in game one, than any other day of the week. So not necessarily a dog day on Friday.
Titan CT on YouTube Shorts saying, I missed the dogs yesterday. You weren't the only one, Titan CT. Everyone was riding the 3-team money line parlay. And I was like, I don't know who's going to be the buster of the parlay. But I didn't think it was going to be my Phillies, who had a 4-0 lead and then end up just getting brutalized there on the back end. We'll talk that game in just a few, because I want to talk about not only how they lost the game, but how they lost 2 key pieces in that hitting lineup and how that could maybe affect totals moving forward, and just really being able to finally fade the Phils like some people have wanted to. But first, the question in the chat from our man Jay Pacino and Have Cash was saying, I took a little Astros sprinkle today thus far. Jay Pacino was asking for a breakdown on this game. The interesting thing, Brian, if you said at the beginning of June, this series at the end of the month would decide out of the Houston Astros and the New York Mets which one was going to be having a winning record, like that was so far of a just absolute, no, what are you talking about? These teams are, but they've both been rolling. Like June has been their month for sure, especially in the case of the New York Metropolitans. Did anything stand out to you in this game one? Because I think this is going to be a hell of a series.
Yeah, it's really interesting. These two get to play together after the Mets just took care of the Yankees, winning 2 straight and do it in an impressive fashion. They were underdogs in both those games, and I was on the Mets in both those instances. Worked out well for me. Quintana was a guy, just a couple of weeks ago, I had talked about him being ready to hit the showers for the season, but he's pitched very well lately, and he was may have changed my mind a little bit. He's close to a pick'em. In fact, it's exactly a pick'em if you take a look at the pinnacle prices in this game. Hate to go against the Mets. Are playing with a lot of confidence right here, but you have to think after playing the Yankees, this is going to be a little bit of a letdown. Blanco going for Houston. I think Houston is going to come into this game with a little bit more positives. I mentioned Carrasco yesterday, that when he left the game, it looked bad, and he's going to be back, no problem, whatever. That's a big boost to Houston. So I like the Houston side slightly in this one, not enough to make it a play, didn't make it a free play or anything, but I prefer them. They're playing solid ball. They're the better team in the long run over the Mets, and Blanco isn't a guy that came into the season knowing much about, because he hasn't really pitched that well in such a long time, but he's been the better pitcher out of these two. So I'll have to go with Houston as a slight lean in this one.
We'll get Steve's thoughts here in just a second, but I want to give a shout out to our man Elias Aravalo over on TikTok. That's right. You can take a little break from your dancing trends and get some sports betting information over at the WagerTalk TikTok channel over there. So he was asking about the Rangers total or Baltimore money line. Steve, given his thoughts in that one, he was just saying if you want to play Texas, it's probably going to be looking towards first 5. As far as the total is concerned, Steve, you kind of touched upon that a little bit, but before you give us your thoughts on this most recent game, any thoughts on the total in that Rangers game for our man over there asking us on TikTok? How about that? You can get us anywhere, Steve.
Yeah, even TikTok while it still lasts. But yeah,
that's
funny.
fair.
I meant to mention some of the total. I would lean over. Scherzer's a real X factor, like I was saying, Dan, because he pitched well last week. He was inconsistent in the minors. Full game over would definitely be my lean on the total, because once again, I think Scherzer might pitch well, but that bullpen is awful for Texas on the road. And both offenses in good current form. They both have had double-digit hits in the majority of their recent games, including last night. It was 11-2, but Rangers still got, I believe, to 10 hits. So I think there'll be some offense. Yeah,
and Steve, as far as this Houston and Mets game is concerned, I don't know if there's anything that jumps off the board as far as a bet, but when I look up and down the slate, like this is the one that I most likely am going to have on my television simply because these are two teams who, were kind of the dredges of the league, and both of them are rolling. You could argue two of the hotter teams, if not the hottest teams here over this last month at least. So I'm intrigued by this game. I just don't know if there's anything that I really want to bet on this one. So anything that stood out for you? Because I'm kind of like Bryan. I have a lean, but it's more lukewarm than anything.
Well, one of my favorite things with baseball now is to try to guess who's cheating and when they'll get caught. I think they should put odds on that. And I bring that up because, Blanco's on the man. And I don't want to point out any Phillies, but there's some Phillies that are vastly overachieving this year. Ranger, Suarez, but he's a little more talented than Blanco. But Blanco's a guy that was pitching out of his mind compared to his career numbers. Burnt me a few times early in the season. What's so crazy, guys, is that the Astros are vastly underachieving. Yeah, Blanco was overachieving. Who would have thought, right? And then he misses that start in mid-May, comes back, goes 7 innings, 1 run allowed after he was caught with the sticky stuff. But then he gave up 8 runs in the next 10 innings over 2 starts. And I'm thinking, the floodgates are opening. But now the last 3 times out, he's given up 2 runs over 20 innings. So he's a tricky guy for me. I'm not a Blanco believer, but his numbers are fantastic this season. That's kind of what kept me off this game. The cat agrees. Cat hates cheaters.
No, of course. I mean, this is that's no lie. This is
Cats have a great ethic, though. People don't realize that about cats. They have a high ethic. Dogs will do whatever, man.
If you ask our cat, she might disagree on that one. I think that's the jury's out there on that. Gentlemen, let's swing it back to that game that I kind of alluded to, simply because I think handicapping the Phillies moving forward here, it's them against the Marlins. Marlins obviously got that big dog win, rocking the bullpen late, but it was just kind of not a comedy of errors for Philadelphia, but just a battle of attrition, I guess you could say, because they started with the nice lead and they're already missing JT Realmuto, but then Kyle Schwarber, he pulls up late in the game. I think it was groin tightness. Bryce Harper looked like while he was running to first base, he ends up coming up limping a little bit. So, I mean, that's 2 huge parts of this lineup, and yet we're still seeing the massive price that you're accustomed to seeing on these Phillies, Bry. I mean, I know it's the Marlins, but it feels like dog or pass. It might be square, but what do you think in this one, Marlins and Phillies? Because I can't bet the Phillies, especially at that price with all of these injuries and the fact that they've already been due for some regression.
Yeah, the Marlins have been good to us lately. I've been playing them as a nice underdog last week or so, and it's worked out very well. Just got news on the WagerTalk line service. Bryce Harper, hamstring, 10-day IL. And because of that, we're seeing money coming in on Miami. The total opened 8.5. We're seeing it being bet down. And the number's coming down a little bit. It's coming down about 10, 15 points so far. And my category is that the dog is probably the way you want to go in this. And Tyler wasn't one of those pitchers for Miami that's got a lot of publicity, but he has looked pretty good. So I think the Miami side here, without Harper, without the catcher, and we don't know about Schwarber as of yet, since that we do have the Friday games. The first game starts at 3:20, and that's this game here. So 3:20 Eastern. So we still have some time on that, or 3:20 Pacific. So we still have some time on this, and there are 4 hours before the game is played. Mm-hmm. So keep an eye out. If Schwarber doesn't play, even more reason to take Miami. Miami's a team, even though they haven't been winning, they continue to play good baseball, good solid baseball. Pitching on this team has been very good. Let's see if guys from the minors, with Tyler and all, can continue this going on here.
Yeah, and Steve, you've been one who has been looking forward to finding the spots to fade with this Phillies. Like you said, maybe some sticky stuff, whatever, but the regression was going to come for the Phillies. And now with all these injuries, they've skirted away from it. It seemed like the pitching picked up whenever you had players injured, but it was never so stark. Harper, Schwarber, and we got Jay Padilla over there on TikTok. I love myself a quesadilla, so why would we not touch upon Jay Padilla's question here? He's asking the Phillies nerfy. I mean, if there was ever a time, because the Phillies have been killers on the no-run first inning, but partially because that murderer's row that they have right at the top of their lineup, that looks a lot different, and it's going to look a lot different how you bet this team moving forward. So if there was ever a time to finally hop on maybe a nerfy train coming for the Phillies, I would argue this is the time to do it. I know that's not really a bet that you dabble with, but how do you think these injuries are going to go moving forward? One game sample, I don't know if I'm running to take the plus money with Miami just because of all this injury news coming in, but I'm surely not laying this kind of price with the Phillies. That's for damn sure.
I mean, Sanchez has given up 1 run in his last 14 innings over 2 starts, so he probably doesn't allow Miami to score at the top of the inning. Tyler's a real X factor for me with I was going to say Florida, with Miami, whatever they're called nowadays, the Florida Marlins. I think if this was an NBA game, we'd be all over the Sixers, right? Because they blew a lead, bad loss, shorthanded,
so true.
Automatic play in the NBA, right? I don't know if that works as well in baseball. I will say this. Acuna was out 3 years ago. The Braves had a losing record. They went on to win the World Series. He's out now. They started to turn things around a little bit better. Mookie Betts goes out. Dodgers crushed the ball last week. Granted, it was in the thin air and altitude, but still they hit well. But the problem, we talk about this in football a lot, is when you have cluster injuries. Like one guy is out on the offensive line, it's overrated. But when 2 or 3 guys are out, it's underrated. And now this is almost starting to look like cluster injuries. So I'd be very careful with Philly. They're still just, even without all those injuries, they're still just 6-6 their last 12. So the regression has kind of begun ever since that London trip, like we predicted. And the Marlins, meanwhile, as Bryan touched on, they're playing good baseball. They've won 6 of their last 9, and they've been an underdog in every one of those games. The problem is, though, they're not hitting the ball well. Last night they had 13 hits, by the way. There really wasn't anything misleading about that win. They out-hit them 13-8. But you look at the 7 games before that, 6 games before that, they'd had 7 hits or less every time. So the nerfing maybe makes sense. The under also might make sense, but it's now gone from 8.5 down to 8, like Bryan said. But I'd probably still lean under in this game.
Yeah, and we had the Wood Don over on TikTok as well asking about the under. When he was asking, it was Phillies 8.5 under. Bryan drops that news here live on air that Harper's not only going to be out for this game, but going to the 10-day IR. So when we'll see him, that's in the foregone future for sure. The 8.5s are gone, Woody. We're looking at 8s painted across the board. I would even maybe think, the player injury losing the top of that lineup too. First 5 under might be worth a look. I mean, I think there's still value sitting at that 8 if you do like the under. For either of you guys, any thoughts here on the total in that Phils game? I would think, you lose the player, you're kind of slugging into the day after a loss last night. Maybe you're licking your wounds a little bit. First 5 under, still a decent price that you can find out there. So maybe that would be the look for me. Any total thoughts on you guys before we roll to another game here?
I would look at that first inning under, because you're already missing the
nerfy
Harper, and if you are missing
so true.
The leadoff hitter, I mean those are 2 of their biggest bats, and you'll be missing them in the first inning. That's the way I would look at it here. And normally something like that is the one that changes last. If you get this injury information, it's usually the side, then the total.
So true.
And then they start breaking it down, first 5. So if you can get that first inning there, no score, that's probably the way I would look.
Yeah, and Dan, the first 5 hasn't moved much either. It's 4.5. Juice has changed like 15 cents, but you didn't lose that half run on the first half. It was 5 was 4.5 before and after, so that's something else to consider.
Yeah, I also love the point that Bryan makes just as far as where the odds are affected right away, because obviously you're going to see the sides and totals because those are the most widely available. And then those smaller markets into those micro markets, that's where you're going to start seeing those dominoes to start falling. So more reasons than ever to watch here live, whether you're watching us on the YouTube channel, Twitter, X, or you're one of the over 200 viewing us live over there on TikTok. We appreciate you. If you haven't, make sure you hit that follow button there. We had a question earlier in TikTok before I wasted all your time talking about my Homer Phillies here. Easy Jackson 12 wanted to know about the Nats, specifically, Steve, your Washington Nationals in the first 5. He says the Rays have struggled with cures. Parker has a good one. What are the thoughts here as far as the Rays and the Nats are concerned? We'll get Bryan's thoughts, but we'll start with you, Steve, as they are your Washington Nationals.
They are, and they're not Drew Martin's Tampa Bay Rays. They're nobody's Rays, I think. In fact, the Rays are 2 games above, about a game and a half ahead of Washington right now in overall standings. But if you just played on the Nats and every game played against the Rays, you'd be up almost 19 units this year. Nationals have been a nice moneymaker. The Rays have been a money burner. And I still don't think it's actually factored in because Washington was expected to be one of the worst teams in baseball. They've overachieved a bit, even though they've lost 4 or 5. Rays, meanwhile, were supposed to be better, but they've quietly won 6 of their last 8. So I'm kind of lukewarm on this game. I'm not looking to back the Rays necessarily, but I'd probably lean towards Tampa. Does look like they're turning the corner here. And I think the Nationals, although they might once again be my Washington Nationals in the near future, I don't think they're quite ready to be primetime players. And you look at this price, minus 155, minus 160. Maybe they are starting to correct in the market because I bet this would have been $2 a couple months ago. So I think there actually might be some value now with the Rays.
How about you, Brian? Anything stand out to you in this one? I mean, trying to find value, that buzzword here in the sports betting space I feel like even this much tougher in a daily grind sport like baseball, but I can see what Steve is laying down there. Anything for you in this game or with the original question is splitting this game in half. You think the Nats could get it done in the first 5 for our man there over on TikTok? What say you, Brian?
Well, for our nation's Capitals team, Monday is a holiday. It just became a holiday because James Woods, the number 3 prospect in all of baseball, is going to be called up. And because they don't sell out their games, they don't get as much quality attendance. They decided to announce it now so people can go out and buy tickets for Monday 3 days in advance or 4 days in advance here. James Woods, not the actor, the baseball player, big power guy, swings and misses a lot, but he's one of those guys in Washington's minor leagues that we've been waiting to see. He'll finally get the call on Monday. I think something like that is a good omen for the team, other than the guy who is going to lose his spot in left field to Woods. But when the management is going out and bringing up the younger guys that are the future, that's exciting for a young team, especially for Washington, because a lot of these guys have played with him either in the minors or in spring training. So that's something to excite them. Eflin's been up and down this year for Tampa Bay. I like him overall. He's not the same pitcher he was a couple of years ago. I did watch a game the other day he was in, and he was getting squeezed. So his numbers were better. His numbers should have been better than what he showed in that outing. But Washington at this price range, that's the way I would look. Parker's been very good. I've talked in the past about left-handers coming into the league as opposed to right-handers. When you're a rookie, lefties seem to be a player that you can back for a while and make some money on. Parker's backers have made a lot of money on him since he's been brought up. I prefer the Washington side here. The line in the 150, 155 range, that's plenty enough for me to get out of Washington here.
Washington, the potential look there for our man Bryan Leonard. And again, shout out to you folks who are joining us live over there on TikTok. We appreciate it. Mario Carranza saying Washington money line. Agree, Brian. So it's all love here in the chat on a Friday afternoon, whether you're joining us across any of our platforms. We really do appreciate you making us a part of your day. We know there's so many options out there as you're scrolling, hanging out with us, getting you some baseball winners. Man, make sure you hit that follow so we can get them with regularity here on the WagerTalk TikTok channel. And of course, don't forget about our old faithful over there on the YouTube feed. Richard Lockhart saying the under in the Nats game. A look for him. Shout out to Jay Pacino over there in the chat. We got Richie there, G Hurt, Titan CT, Mike Scott, Michelle. We appreciate all of you tuning in here and hopping in the chat. If you're watching us on the rewatch, don't forget, hop below on those comments as well, and we'll be chopping it up with you down there. Guys, speaking of the YouTube channel, one of the games that was in the description, so we got to hit on, or I'm going to get some comments about that, is the Padres and the Red Sox. And we were talking about how June has been a great month for the Mets and for the Astros. Well, recent form has been really nice to both of these teams. Unfortunately for the Padres, they now have to take it back to the highway. They had that nice home stand, 3 in a row, 6-1 while remaining home there. And for the Red Sox, what is it, Bri? It's been 8 of their last 10, I think, that they've won. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So 2 teams that recent form has been running hot. This all of a sudden becomes a damn good baseball game and a good series to see which one will be able to continue that run, or if we're just going to be looking at a split and then a rubber match. Anything for you in this one? Because I know the cat likes this one, Bri.
Yeah, Randy Vasquez going for San Diego. He's probably the weak link out of their starting rotation. Probably their seventh or eighth best pitcher. They've got problems right now with a couple of guys, a couple of very good starters that are hurt right now. But Randy Vasquez, you take a look at his savant numbers, his pitching run values in the fifth percentile, off-speed run value in the sixth percentile. You take a look at his xERA and x batting average, the first percentile. That means he's the worst in Major League Baseball. Expected ERA and expected batting average. That's not something I want to bet on when you're playing in a good hitter's park like Boston. Obviously, we've seen Boston play before, and they've been very good at home. Nick Pivetta has been terrific. He's having another nice year. His strikeout percentage 27.2, walk percentage 6.4. That's close to 21%, and that's a lot better than Randy Vasquez 9%. When you take the K minus walk ratio. So big advantage from the pitching standpoint for Boston. And some of their guys are getting or are starting to play a little bit better than they were earlier this season. Jaron Duran's been terrific. Tyler O'Neill, when he's in the lineup and healthy, he's doing well. Rafael Devers, we know what he can do. But some of the lesser names, middle infielders out there are playing pretty well. David Hamilton's been great. Big speedster that can have some success in this game. So I like Boston here. One of the favorites that I prefer today. And the price is fine. We're in the 150 range. So I like Boston. I think against Vasquez, maybe the first five would be even better. I haven't looked at those numbers. But that would be something I would prefer if we can get something similar to the numbers we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you took the words right out of my mouth as far as the first five is concerned. I would even think about dabbling maybe a little bit with laying the half a run in the first five, because it's not like, obviously full game. You maybe worry about how it's going to go for the entire game, losing that extra at bat. Steve, any thoughts for you in this one? Also, if this thing was sitting at that key number at 9, if we weren't losing that hook, I'd probably be looking towards an over in this one. Taji Harden over on TikTok asking about the Red Sox money line. That's the look for Bryan. What's your thoughts in this one, Steve? Because for me, I'll say Red Sox first five. I might even sprinkle a little bit on the half run. Bryan thinking that might be worth it. He's thinking Red Sox. So are we in full agreement? Are we giving the kiss of death to the Red Sox here tonight? What are you thinking?
Well, the odds makers are on to the fact Vasquez is awful because you're paying a premium for that first five. It's about minus 155, minus 160 for the full game. Like Bryan said, it's as high as minus 190 first five. So you're talking about an extra 30 cents. But that's definitely factored in. The minus a half, by the way, is minus 135-ish. So I do agree, Dan, if you're going to play the first five, that's probably the way to go. Well, they only got to win the first 5 innings by a run. So I think that's actually probably my preference here. The other thing you can do is Dave Koken, the great Dave Koken, who just retired this week. He mentioned this years ago when I was doing the baseball shows with him, and I bring it up a lot now. Most books now have a minus 1 run line, but back in the day when Dave and I and Bryan and we all started, you couldn't do that. You can always make your own minus 1 run line. So you can lay minus 155, half of it, and then take the plus one at the minus 1.5 at plus 125 or so. And you're getting it down to like minus 115 for minus 1. So that's another way I think to play the Red Sox. So I'd either say minus 1 full game or that first 5 minus a half. I do like the over, by the way, over 9.5. I know that's off that key number, Dan, but as you and I know, the highest totals usually go over more times than not, and that keeps people from playing this. It probably should be 10 or higher. I think the over is worth a look there as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was the initial look for me. And also over on the YouTube Shorts feed, Jay pointing out both teams top 8 versus righties. You're looking at a hitter's ballpark. That's the feel there for Jay, liking the over as well. So we appreciate you over there chiming in. And on the YouTube Shorts feed, Phil the Kill, Ave Cash, John Pierre Draskins saying, let's go. That's right. Let's go, baby. Let's go right into best bets here. Bryan Leonard has a look in the marquee game of the evening, of course, Colorado Rockies and the Chicago White Sox. Hey, don't sniff at the Chicago White Sox, though. They got that big plus money win yesterday. Nobody thought they had it in them, and they get it done. Now they will be hosting the Colorado Rockies. Bri, let folks know what you have rocking over at WagerTalk, wt.buzz/BL, and let us know how we're betting this game that everyone is going to be locked to their sets on.
The White Sox get the victory by scoring 1 run. in yesterday's game. I've got 4 plays up currently up on the site right now, including my American League game of the week, a 4% play. And I've been terrific, 19, 6, and 1 on our 3% and higher selections. I've got a 4% going today in baseball action, so you don't want to miss on that. So we got 4 plays overall, and this is one of them. I think there's value here in this Colorado-Chicago White Sox game. We've been very good in baseball, number one, going all the way back through to May 1st, so don't miss out on our full card today. But Colorado, the Chicago White Sox today, in a battle of bottom feeders, as you mentioned, we prefer the Rockies and their veteran arm, Dakota Hudson. Hudson's been terrible in Colorado this year with a whopping 8.58 ERA at home. 8.58 ERA at home. That's compared to a 3.07 ERA and 1.10 whip when outside of Coors Field. So when he gets to pitch in normal conditions, he's been very good. And a lot of the people think all of the cat's going crazy. He just loves this underdog. But a lot of people will take a look at his year-to-date numbers and his full numbers and not want him. But he's been very good when not pitching in Colorado. White Sox are just 14 and 28 at home this season and are minus 171 overall net runs scored. That's the worst in baseball. The Rockies are a better hitting team with a WRC of 83, which is still 17% worse than league average, but it's also 8% better than the Chicago White Sox team. Drew Thorpe came in over the White Sox from the Dylan Cease trade with the Padres. He has a 5.02 ERA, 1.53 whip in his 3 starts. And like most of the rookies who appeared this season, big league hitters have proven to be much tougher than what he saw in the minors. This still continues on from the COVID years where they shut down the minors for a while and they really cut back on that. So everybody in the minors that jump from AAA or AA to the majors is higher now than it's ever been because of that lost time where a lot of those players lost that full year of instruction. And it's really showing if you watch these rookie pitchers, they've all struggled for the most part. So we can go against them here. And he's one of the best guys that Chicago has in the minors coming over from San Diego. He was the key to that deal with Dylan Cease. So, but we just can't trust him in the White Sox bullpen in this one. The White Sox yesterday got that 1-0 victory. I expect the offense to be in similar form today. Only score a couple here against Colorado. It's not often that I'm looking to back the Colorado Rockies on the road.
Yeah.
But I like them here, and I think this is a situation where I like the way their team is fitting in the future as opposed to Chicago. Don't like the management in Colorado. It's been lousy for years. But the players on the field, they've got more talent than this White Sox team does right now.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you stay profitable, Bryan, is not looking to bet the Colorado Rockies on the road. But it makes sense to me here today. It's like if Chicago White Sox are winning, it's not like they're winning in resounding fashion. So Colorado at the plus money price, that is an ugly dog for sure. Hop below in the comments. Let us know if you have any underdogs that could be uglier than that. I think you'll be hard to find them, but I like that plus money price. That's the way that Bryan is looking for today's best bet. Steve, home sweet home finally for the Bravos in your best bet. They're taking on Pittsburgh, but it has just been travel. It's going to be the 4th game, 3 different cities over a short little span here for the Atlanta Bravos, but they get to stay home, and you're thinking they might be staying home and starting off the homestand at margin in this one. What's the best bet, and what can clients find over at your page, wt.buzz/SM?
Yeah, going to get to a free play here in this Pirates and Braves game in just a moment, but I do have 2 strong best bets going tonight on Friday in Major League Baseball. It's a 2-for-1 special. You can get them both right now. Second play for just $4 more by the 2-for-1 combo. And I missed a strong play on Tuesday night, but I've gone 14-4 on all other best bets the last couple of weeks and 20-7 during the run on all other plays. So my point is, don't live and die by single game results. Take a serious long-term perspective and win big. Now's a great time to get locked up for football as well. The early bird specials are still available. Several $100 discounts for both college and pro football. The baseball specials are up too. You can get the rest of my baseball best bets through the All-Star break in mid-July for just $109 if you want to get a several-week sampler there. Or the Big Daddy special. I'm bringing the promo code back. It's on my page right now. A full year for just $3 a day. That's all sports, college and pro football, college and pro basketball, baseball into this time next year. The next 365 days and nights for just $3 a day. That's about $1.50 a play. Promo code SM365. Get the 1 year Big Daddy and use promo code SM365. You save over $800 instantly. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. All right, 2 baseball best bets tonight. A third game that was just a bit outside from making the cut is the Braves run line. Going to get that minus 190 down to minus 1.5 plus money, plus 105 in many locations. And I do think the Braves will win by margin. Mentioned that bad loss to the White Sox last night, but it was a terrible scheduling spot. They played at the Yankees, played at St. Louis, and had to play 1 game in Chicago. Obviously, they didn't take it serious. They had 3 hits, no runs. Now they return home without rest. But I actually like the fact they had a bad game last night in Chicago, because otherwise they would have come home a day sooner, sat around, and home teams off road trips with the day off are in their weakest spot. So now Atlanta basically has got like another road game tonight. So the letdown maybe happens this weekend at some point, either Saturday or Sunday, but not tonight. I think the Braves bring their A game, especially after a bad showing yesterday against a bottom feeder. They're not going to overlook the Pirates, who are having a nice story. Dave Sharapan all excited with that 39-41 record. But it tells you something when you're excited about a 39-41 start, where the Braves were 44-34 going into last night, and they feel like they're underachieving. That tells us all we need to know. Pittsburgh's still one of the worst offensive teams in baseball. Good spot tonight. Lay the 1.5 with the Braves. They win by margin, plus the 105. And by the way, if you'd like my pitcher performance projections for both of these starters, they're on my page right now with that free play analysis. And I point out that the current Pittsburgh lineup has gone just 10 for 48 against Charlie Morton, 208. And I project Martin Perez to have over a 5.1 ERA in his start tonight. All those ratings, the whips, ERAs, and projections are on my page free right now. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Check out Steve's page, WT.buzz/SM. Check out Bry's, WT.buzz/BL. Bryan going with Colorado at the plus money price on the money line for his best bet. And Steve laying it. Still getting plus money, minus 1.5 for the Bravos over the Pirates, opening up the homestand with a big win for the home crowd, says Steve Merril. Big thanks to these guys. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you're watching us on any of our other streaming platforms like TikTok, X, or Instagram, hit that follow button. That's a way to say thanks to these guys before you check them out over at WagerTalk.com. That's going to do it here. Another week of shows rolls on here for First Pitch. Shout out to Bryan, shout out to Steve, and shout out to you, the viewers, making us a part of your day. If you're watching us on YouTube, check out the links in the description below to keep getting info that you need to cash on those sports that you love. If you're watching us on one of those other aforementioned platforms, just hit that follow and scroll on through, and you'll see single game breakdowns, free plays, and specials galore at WagerTalk across all of your favorite social media platforms. We'll be back with you rocking live on Monday, maybe even a little earlier in the day. Only way you can find out is if you're followed, if you're subscribed here on WagerTalk's platforms. We'll see you then. We will be back with WagerTalk Last Call. That's right, Saturday's show, so don't go anywhere. You're going to be getting some info heading in. Copa America, you're going to get your soccer plays. We're going to get you everything you need for baseball over the weekend as well. UFC, CFL. If you want to bet it, you can find it at WagerTalk. We will see you then, and until then, best of luck, everyone. Have a great weekend.